Hey everybody, it's James, otherwise known as the Skate Punk Lefty, finally back here with another video. I told you I was going to be a little more consistent, and in this, today in this video, this is going to be something of a big one, or at least a medium-sized one, because I'm not going to go through a 2-hour debate and try to get people to watch to it like I used to. So basically, what I want to talk about today even goes far beyond this conversation about what Asmongold supposedly said about Palestinian people and his reasons and motivations for saying the thing that he said. So one thing that I noticed these days is that, okay, and this will go with the title of this video, I believe people like Russell Brand and Asmongold are more dangerous than Nick Fuentes or Adam Waffen Division or Gavin McGinnis or Jack Posobiec or any of those people. You know, Tim Pool is more dangerous than like David Duke, because we have people who people who are conservative or very far right. You get me, right? But being far right or conservative or any of his known ideologies connected to it, I'm trying to keep my language clean, so I'm not gonna say, you know, the people that existed in the 30s, just neo versions of those. We just say that neo 1930s people, we would say, slash 1940s that, you know, we went to go across the Atlantic and had to do D-Day to. You know the people I'm talking about, a continuation of that movement. You got to use so many words on YouTube because the fact they don't let you say certain stuff. So anyway, so these people are dangerous in their own right, and even normal like conservatives to the political commentators these days are often at the time very far right. And but these people are very obvious and easy to argue against. So what we have today is that we have a new movement of conservatives and far right people who don't identify with labels, and they pretend to be this sort of pretentious, above it all, I'm not a right wing or a left wing person. You know, it's kind of like pseudo libertarian. I love, you know, smoking marijuana, but also, you know, I'm against the system, but I'm gonna withhold socioeconomic progress if you dare say something. So let me give you an example of like what I mean. So you will have someone, right, that say, okay, and I covered this kinda in an RFK rally video. If this video, you know, gets famous, go back and watch that. You'll get more context of what I mean. So let's take a milk. These people would do, they take like a milquetoast liberal statement, and keep in mind these people don't claim to have any political ideology. So let's say Joe Biden says fighting white supremacy is the responsibility of all Americans, right? And someone like Asmongold, Tim Pool, or Russell Brand will go behind and say, this is authoritarian. You're saying all white people are racist. You're trying to, you know, force me to fight in battles and be political when I don't want to be. But when it comes a chance to push a far right ideology, let's say increasing police budget, suddenly they're involved in stuff like that. And they will say, you know, insane statements like the police exist to protect freedom. That's why we need more police in those black neighborhoods, because I got black friends. There's, you know, no way I'm a racist. And, you know, I know black people that say that they like the police. So in turn, I'm going to support further persecution and far right policies, while at the same time saying that I'm not a right wing or a left wing person. So I hope we got clear what my complaint is that this false centrism is very dangerous, because a lot of people want to feel uninvolved and above the normal dynamics of right-wing and left-wing politics, but a lot of right-wing people are embarrassed to say that they're right-wing, and instead of admitting that, they claim to be apolitical people. But when you actually challenge them on different political positions, as it's borne out, it turns out these people are not exactly apolitical as they say that they are. So without further ado, let's get into it. I don't know if I need to continue. I'm gonna continue so I get the full context of the clip.
These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us. they come from an inferior culture that is horrible.
You see what I mean by, falsely claiming to be a Western progressive while at the same time demeaning and supporting the persecution of an entire sect of people in the Middle East, and continuing, Islamophobic stereotypes that if some people who are, Muslim are, have the ideology of Sharia law, so all Muslim people have the ideology of Sharia law. No nuance, no understanding, and something else.
Kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is.
And what really always bugged me about this clip when I was listening through some of the debate that we're going to go over all day at work is that these people do not care about human rights for LGBT plus people. They do not care. Keep in mind, these are the same people who, and I know Asmongold has probably done this. So take gender affirming care. So they will say kids that are 7 years old are getting gender affirming care, while at the same time impugning and demeaning radical Muslims for being, anti-LGBT as well, when them themselves are anti-LGBT. Asmongold is the type of person who would literally in the same sentence be like, or the same day at least, be like yeah, I'm pro LGBT, that's why I don't like radical Islam. And then when they be like okay, how do you feel about this new law that protects LGBT people? Well, I feel like that's authoritarianism, and you don't have to force it on people, and that's the problem these days. Kids are being forced to see LGBT people on TV, so now that justifies the entire socioeconomic persecution of LGBT people, because I saw this video or heard this one instance, probably from somebody on the far right, of a queer person misbehaving. So now I believe all queer people in America deserve the oppression that they're getting, while at the same time virtue signaling about LGBT rights when it gives them the chance to be homophobic or transphobic or sexist. This is the same garbage that people like this used to pull in 2015. And I'm not gonna lie, it even had me fooled, because I think before they admitted out loud that they were far right, this is the approach that Sargon of Akkad and Stefan Molyneux had, where they claimed to be liberals and then believed in democracy, and they claimed that left-wing socioeconomic values were corrupting America or the West, while at the same time being Islamophobic and saying that all Muslim people shouldn't be in this was a famous one during the Syrian refugee crisis, where they would say, oh, I'm just worried about all the women, because that's another one too in Britain, but at the same time they don't support women who advocate against our culture, and women who tell their stories about when they've been assaulted 9 times out of 10 by somebody close to them and not an immigrant. These people, like I said, at the same time would say they don't support LGBT rights or the expansion of LGBT rights, while at the same time impugning radical Muslim people for being anti-LGBT. And ironically enough, this stereotype can come off as racist and closed-minded, and I guess we can get into it without even having to see the rest of this stuff, because it doesn't matter with what I have to say anyway. The point being is just that these people at the same time, will say one thing and they will do another at their convenience. And it seems that Asmongold, and people are going to get mad at this, is being a racist here. And I don't like it when people do this to large groups of people. Asmongold is the type of person where if, say for instance, if somebody like Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, or Nancy Pelosi, the most milquetoast liberals, said that, white privilege is a thing, right? Asmongold and people like him would then extrapolate that to say, oh, well, you said white privilege is real, you're saying all white people are racist, and you're saying my life is easy just because I'm white. And since you said that, now allow me to vote and advocate for the halting of socioeconomic progress, even at the expense of white people, because you criticize white privilege. And and ironically enough, you didn't say anything about white people, but I'm gonna pedantically pretend to be offended anyway and talk about how I have black friends and love to smoke weed. So I'm not a right wing person, but watch me support and defend right wing economic values and social values. You see what I mean? Where you go in this snake eating his own tail, ignorant way of looking at politics that winds up horseshoeing to support far right agendas. People like Asmongold is like the type of guy that like Martin Luther King and Fred Hampton wrote about. The centrist, the liberal, the person who loves a negative piece versus a positive revolution. And I think this way of promoting politics winds up serving the far right's agenda better than somebody openly coming on YouTube or anywhere advocating for nationalism or any other oppression, because it comes off as I'm a soft-hearted liberal who loves marijuana and listens to rap and plays video games, but at the same time you're actually the type of person that will hold up progress because you will pick and choose times where you will pedantically act like you're offended. So we go back, and I believe I'm going to watch about 15 minutes of this debate between Hassan Piker and Asmongold. Hassan, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of him, but he has like a 91% hit rate on things that he's correct on. And I feel like in the language of this debate, I'll be able to dissect what I mean further. Imagine sitting there going over a 3 hour, 30-minute debate. That is insane how long that they talk to, because these people have so many ways to avoid responsibility for the things that they said, for the things that they think, for the things that they believe, that it's really, really difficult for you to how can I say, talk to them. Because if you make a direct accusation, or even if you make like a formative accusation about what they said, they immediately start backpedaling and acting like you're the bad guy. And in the parts of this debate that I've listened to, I believe I listened to about 15-20 minutes, that's all we're going to do, he backpedaled, and because what people like Asmongold, far right people like him, try to do, he won't directly dive into promoting or saying far right opinions. What they do is they stand on the edge and they wait on you to run up and push them over, because they were pretend to be like this innocent person with just an innocent opinion, trying to innocently protect or defend this group. And when you accuse them of being bigoted, they immediately fall off the cliff and say, again, this is why I will withhold socioeconomic progress, even at the expense of working class white people, because this leftist offended me and called me bigoted for the statement that I made. Even though I'm aware that the statement was ignorant, I'm going to pedantically act like it was in good faith anyway. And if anybody pressures me too much, I fold, and and I act simple-minded, like I didn't do anything.
I'm not going to cry a river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a They're terrible people.
What the Ain't no way he's talking about Palestinians, right?
They'd be doing the same thing. And how much did they kill?
Let's go up.
That's barbaric. You were simply talking about the
And keep in mind, because my main issue with this, and I might have to say that throughout the 15 to 20 minutes of this debate that I have to go through, but I want to start out by saying this. All Palestinian people are not the same. If we can accept that all white people aren't racist, all white people aren't conservative, all white people aren't far right, all white people don't agree with far right agendas, we should be able to simply accept that all Palestinian people do not agree with Hamas. And it's also argued the only reason why Hamas holds so much prominence and power in Palestine is because Benjamin Netanyahu funded them instead of the more secular, social democratic Fatah, so that they will be able to continue the Islamic phobic way of looking at Palestinian people free of consequences. There's plenty of Palestinian people who are, communists, anarchists, secular people who would have preferred a secular, non-authoritarian government. We also must keep in mind after this funding from Israel that Hamas received, Hamas, even if they didn't receive the funding, is an authoritarian organization. People that disagree with them and talk about things like voting and individual freedom and right to choose their government get unalive. These are not people that you can negotiate your freedom with. And Israel is not helping, the recruitment numbers with the way that they're going about waging this conflict.
Hypocrisy, is that what it is?
Yeah, pretty much. I do. And somebody in my chat said that you said that I thought Christian theocracy was better.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, what a fucking...
Well, I would say that because at the end of the day, because it's like this, because these people, as we go through this conversation, they haven't got a chance to get to it, or I might have skipped past it. Keep in mind, we have homophobia here. There are plenty of politicians, people, streamers, political commentators that are promoting a homophobic agenda. And Asmongold knows nothing and says nothing about these people, yet he's so quick to impugn radical Muslim people for their homophobia. That's sort of convenient to me, where you will ignore the homophobia in your own state, but dare reach across the water and judge others for their homophobia. That is very inconsistent to me, and it's very transparently Islamophobic.
I'm surprised. Okay, well, here's the thing, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I want you to like fully explain, because I want to understand and everything that you mean beyond the hypocrisy, because like the hypocrisy version, or the hypocrisy in and of itself, is one thing that we can address. It's a super simple concept. Well, but I think there's always a broader point beyond hypocrisy, because online hypocrisy in and of itself, or even the invocation of hypocrisy or perceived hypocrisy, is seemingly a more damaging thing than like actual material harm, right? Oh, this person is hypocritical, and that's like a very common fucking thing. Yeah. I'm sure you experience it on a regular basis as well. It doesn't really matter.
Most hypocrisy, I think, is derived from a misunderstanding that is often deliberate. I see it oftentimes with you. You've seen it with me. Everybody has it happen. It's extremely common on the internet.
It's the Andrew Tate phenomenon, right? Where people don't give a fuck about like what Andrew Tate may have done or may not have done, or all the shit that he has definitely done, right? And care more about like, perceived hypocrisy. Usually, they care more about that than anything else. So I don't necessarily.
I mean, conservative people are known for their inconsistency and vaguely gesturing at imagined hypocrisy. Because my issue with people like Asmongold when it comes to talking about things like this is they never think. Look at his dumb face. They never think that you can do two things at once. Like, I can be anti-Islamic phobic, I can be pro-Palestinian and pro-LGBT. Why does human rights have to stop at one or another? It's like, that's because Asmongold and other people like him live in a world where helping one group means hurting another, because that's the political ideology that they subscribe to. Just because you advocate for one group does not mean you have to advocate for the destruction and persecution of another, or you might be unawares that one group holds, one ideology or another. This will be like literally saying that you cannot be pro-black because some black people are homophobic. While there may be a problem with homophobia in things like hip-hop culture, sports culture, and what have you, that still does not excuse the socioeconomic persecution that black people deal with. This is a very ignorant way of looking at politics.
I'll clip about that. It was very good.
Yeah, I don't necessarily care about hypocrisy that much, but in terms of the hypocrisy of the matter, I can explain it to you.
Sure.
Number one, so in terms of LGBTQ acceptance, right? Trans acceptance, queer acceptance, you find that to be, in the United States of America, in the wealthiest nation on earth, one of the most prosperous nations on the planet, to be, to a certain degree, like a fancy thing to advocate for, right?
I don't think that you have to be rich to advocate for LGBT acceptance.
No, that's not.
That is not what he said. That is not what he said. Not what he said at all. What Hassan is saying here, you fool, is that America's, better off socioeconomically. We're like literally, haven't had a war touch us since World War II. We might have to deal with different things happening to our country sometimes, like 91101. But for the most part, America is a safe country where people are free to think, theorize, imagine, and run about, vetting civil rights, thinking about civil rights, and solving civil rights issue. While in Palestine, Iraq, and even in places like Russia, they are constantly in turmoil with the government or with foreign countries interfering in their affairs to the point where they cannot get themselves together like long enough to think about the civil rights of other people. And this regression of thought is usually caused by persecution. And when people feel persecuted and they have nothing to live for, it's like I keep saying, because people wonder why people join groups like Hamas. It's the same reason why people become gang members in America. And that's not just black and Latino people. That is also like the mob, like the Italian mob, the Irish mob, and the Jewish mob and stuff like that. When people feel as though they have nothing to live for, they will do anything to survive. And that means subscribing to abhorrent political ideologies or ways of life in order to survive.
I'm saying.
Okay, what are you saying? Sorry.
No. What I'm simply saying is that LGBTQ representation in video games is oftentimes considered to be something that is like unnecessary, or something that is considered
you're talking
to
about
be
like in games?
In games, in facets of culture, in facets of media.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. It feels like it's inauthentic. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, wait, is there a positive example of LGBT?
It's always inauthentic. You see what I'm saying? And I think, at least in my opinion, I don't know if I'm reading into it too much, but this is the slip I'm talking about, where he literally just did it. I don't even remember hearing this part. I must have forgot because I paused it because I got mad. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Where you say Palestinian people under the rule of Hamas, a militia, far-right jihad organization, are homophobic. But when we have any LGBT representation in video games, it's inauthentic, it's forced, it doesn't need to be there. What? Not even trying to get into the further conversation about why representation of minorities matters in media, but you see the inconsistency right there. Because there's no way, there's no way, to me at least, you can 1 second say, well, there's no representation for LGBT people in Palestine, that's why I support what's going on over there and what's happening to all those people collectively, because a small percentage of those people rule the country under these rules. So I personally believe in collective punishment of Palestinian people versus again, that all LGBT representation in media is suddenly inauthentic when we're talking about progress in the West. Keep in mind today, the West is not really, as you might think, a bastion of LGBT rights and representation. People are still fighting to roll back the wheels of progress that queer people have made over the past about 60 years, because I believe they've made progress at the same time women and black people have made progress. Timelines might not be directly together, and it's the same forces trying to will this progress back. But what can be said here is that there's still a long way to go because of people saying things like that. Because when a LGBT person is in a movie, a video game, or something like that, it should just be a person in a movie or video game. And if this so happen to be an LGBT couple, or a person where a person looks queer, it should just be a person. But that junk right there, where you keep hyper focusing in on it and saying that it's inauthentic and it can never be an honest representation for LGBT people is the problem that I'm talking about. That's the hypocrisy right there. I'm going to go for about 5 or 6 more minutes, but I think, like literally right there, that's all I really need.
DQ representation that you can think of in mainstream media in recent years?
Sure.
Just so I understand what the dynamic is there.
Did you play Final Fantasy 16?
I did not.
Nope.
Oh my god. So they had a character in Final Fantasy 16. His name was Dion. And he was like the prince of an area. He was like the, like person who could like channel Bahamut, right? And he was gay, and it was part of the story. And they actually blocked sale for that game in some places in the Middle East because Square Enix didn't want.
That's because those governments, not the people that live there. This is again that idea of collective punishment. And I'm gonna let them finish the story before I say it one more time.
To censor the game for that reason, and I respect them a lot for that.
So therefore,
but that was, wait, they refused to block the game? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Square Enix did not do that.
Okay.
And that was a good representation of like gay or trans.
Yeah, I think so. I really do.
Okay.
I think that whenever you create a character, that the character's personality, sometimes it feels like when characters are added into stories, especially if they have like an LGBT like lean to them, they can be turned into being like a one-dimensional like I guess identification of that person. And it's like they make like an overt effort to talk about that and discuss it. And I feel like in a lot of times it can come off as patronizing or talking down to the audience.
See what I'm saying? I'm saying? Like, I'm done. I'm done right here. You see what I'm saying? That is extremely inconsistent. And it's like, even though he caveated it by saying sometimes, but most people, and it's like, it's this weird thing where, first of all, most people in media are still straight. So there's not like it's an epidemic of LGBT people being hyper represented in video games or movies or television shows. That's number one. But two, even when in the West that they are they're in the media that you're consuming is inauthentic and is preaching down to you. With the caveat of sometimes. But that's the inconsistency I'm talking about. And the last thing I'll end off on, if Asmongold is such a bastion of LGBT rights, whether he wants to be apolitical or not, I'm not sure. But there's in America right now, there's an obvious group of people pushing against the progress that queer people have made over the past 50 years. And it's not radical Muslim people. Despite these countries being ruled by dictators in the Middle East, most of these dictators in the Middle East, ironically, are propped up, funded, and a result of United States interference in their elections and in their voting and what have you. And there had to be revolutions taken advantage of by the radical Muslims, the radical far right in that country, that deposed people that believed in things like feminism and gay rights, because America couldn't be bothered to work with those people, and they would rather work with these regressive morons, like the Saudi government, for instance. That's a prime example. And this is not the thoughts of the people that live there. This is the thoughts of the regime. People are not voting these people in power. And I don't think it's right to promote collective punishment against an entire population because the ruling, the ruling patrons decide to make one law or another. And these people would dang sure not apply that logic if I was to say, like, all white people are Lee Atwater, something like that. Richard Nixon represents all white people. Ronald Reagan represents all white people. Or any other far-right, callous individual that has harmed black, queer, and immigrant people wholesale. They wouldn't accept that logic and they'll pee their pants over it. But yeah, Asmongold, more dangerous than Nick Fuentes or Jack Posobiec or any of those other morons. And just make sure when you look at political problems, you have nuance. This has been Escape Punk Lefty. Thank you for listening.